Hello, everyone. My name is Karl Lentini. Welcome to the Men of Law podcast. I'm very happy today to welcome Allison Scola, who is joining us today from Sicily in Italy. Allison is founder, owner, and curator of Experience Sicily and the Cannoli Crawl, named one of the experts for the 2019 New York Times travel show. Allison writes and lectures on Sicily and leads immersive tours and designs custom itineraries that delight discerning travelers. So, welcome, Allison.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks for having me.
Sure. I think I just stumbled upon your website in my online searches about Sicily and things to do and tours and such.
Okay, so and you said you're coming to Sicily in September.
Yes, yes. My friend and I first were visiting the north, and then on September 15th, we'll be in a car in Calabria and take the ferry boat across the waters into Sicily.
Uh-huh. And you know
Yeah.
that when you get on the ferry, you're supposed to go have arancine, which is that's the legend, the myth of when you take the ferries, you have to have your first rice balls when you cross the Strait of Messina. So make sure you do that. You you get out of your probably will be I don't know. You drive in your car, but you can get out of the car and go on the deck and have some rice balls on the way over.
Oh,
So make sure
sure.
you do that. Hmm.
Sure. I went with my family many years ago. We did that very thing. And
Uh-huh.
the arancini on the boat were the best I've ever had. It was
Yes.
amazing.
They say for I don't know. I mean, what they do on that boat. Apparently, they're supposed to be excellent arancine. Now, no, that you're saying arancini and I'm saying arancine because I'm in Palermo, and our arancine are feminine. Versus when you're on the east side of the island, which is you're going to be. You said your family has heritage in Lentini, right? Is that correct?
That's my name. Yeah.
That's your name. But what's the town where your family has heritage?
Well, Marsala and Palermo.
Okay, so your heritage West Coast. Okay, well on the East Coast of Sicily, this is an ongoing debate and friendly argument that the arancini are their rice balls there are masculine in terms of how we say them. So you'll hear that difference. So someone in Catania area is going to call them arancini, and in the Palermo, Marsala area where your family's from, we call them arancine. We call them feminine. So there's this friendly argument. I think it stems back to Carthaginian and Greek times, personally, still. And it really has to do with language etymology, essentially. But that's and also in the end, the recipes are different. But know that that's I'm curious to see. I'm gonna imagine on the boat between Reggio Calabria and Messina that they're called Marancini. So take note of that, and then we can
Mm.
talk after you take the boat over, and we can see. So after you cross the Strait of Messina in the car that you've rented in Calabria, what's your route? Where are you going to be going in Sicily?
Our base of operations is a hotel in Giardini Naxos,
Uh huh. Mm-hmm.
just south of Taormina.
Yeah.
And so from there, we're there for about 5 days. And my friend really wants to hit the Valley of the Temples and the Turkish Steps
Uh
with
huh.
one day. Another day,
Yeah.
we want to go to Lentini and Carl Lentini. I'm
Yes.
obligated to go there.
You must go.
Yes.
Absolutely. Uh huh.
Of course, we want to visit Catania because it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend is dying to go hike on Mount Etna.
Uh huh.
I'm a little more cautious about that right now.
Well,
Because
you can still go on Etna. Etna's massive, and you really will see once you're in Sicily how massive it is, and it's possible to still do an excursion on Etna that's very safe and far from where all the activity is going. Most people don't get up to where the activity is happening. And in fact, I don't recommend that you go up to where the activity is happening because it is dangerous. Anything can happen with a pyroclastic eruption, for example. Etna does everything. That's why she's a very special volcano because she's not only pyroclastic, which is what Vesuvius was, and also Mount St. Helens, and that's where there's a cork on her and then one day the cork decides to blow, and that's a dangerous and it pushes magna up into the atmosphere straight up, and then it could fall over, which is what happened in 79 AD with Vesuvius. This you'll see that kind of activity in Etna also, but then she also has the effusive. Most of the time, she's effusive, is what we call, and that's more like what they have in Kilauea, I think, is the Hawaiian volcano, where it's lava and it's slow and it's predictable once we see that it's happening. And but at the same time, those explosions can happen, and that's when it's dangerous. People get close to the lava flow, and there can be an explosion or a big lava ball can come out and that's where it's dangerous. People are stupid if they go too close. If you want to do a regular, excursion, and I can tell you a great excursion operator that I work with all the time, and he goes off road, and you really feel like you're really getting an education about the volcano. I'm happy to give you that reference. Um, so know that that can be done still, and it's safe even if there's activity. But tomorrow that lava could close up, and she'll calm down, and we won't hear much about it for a few weeks or months or even years. Right now, I think because we were just talking about how hot it is in general, the globe is very hot, and so Etna, I find anecdotally, I find in the summer she tends to be more active because of the heat going on in the atmosphere, and the Earth itself is hot. So again, I'm not a volcanologist, but I like to say that I know a lot about her, and I think that the summer tends to be a very active time. So you're going to be in Giardini Naxos. You have 5 days there. Were you planning on changing hotels to go to Etna, or you were going to do a day excursion to Valley of the Temples from Giardini? What was
Day excursions. I mean, we
Mhm.
have the car. The
Mhm.
temples we can drive out to.
Yes, it takes
Uh,
2 hours and 15 minutes from where you're staying.
oh, okay.
Essentially, one direction. So, and it has to do with the fact that we have like a somewhat new highway that is between. It was added. It opened recently between Enna and Agrigento, and that has made travel between on the autostrada go very fast. So a trip that used to take much longer is now much shorter and more comfortable. So that's to your advantage. So yeah, it can be done. And Scala di Torchi is another like 15-20 minutes from Valley of the Temples, and it's a sort of quick visit there. Uh, so you might want to walk on the beach a little bit. There is now an entrance fee to go closer to the actual rock of the Scala dei Turchi, which for those who don't know, it's a Scala dei Turchi is it's the scale the stairs of the Turks. It's an environmental phenomena. It's like the White Cliffs of Dover. It's actually marl stone, which is marl is a combination of lime, calcium, limestone, kind of mixed together, and it's actually it has formed along that south coast of Sicily, and it's more than just Scala di Torchi. If you go along that whole south coast, those white cliffs exist in various points they show up. Um, but Scala dei Torchi tends to be the most famous one. And it forms this beautiful, like sloping, sort of stair-like cliff into the sea. And against the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean Sea, there, it's quite extraordinary to see. But recently, the town of Realmonte, where it is, has added an entrance fee because they're trying to protect it, and rightfully so, because it's chalky. Like you sit on it, you get wet.
Hmm.
It's like sitting on a bunch of chalk because you get white. So yeah, so it can be a beautiful visit there to walk along it to see it. I've actually done a hike a few years ago. It was such an awesome hike where we approached it from the west along the beach, which is the only way you can approach Scala di Torchi from the west is literally walking on the beach through water. You have to cross into the sea a little bit to even get there, and then to walk up from that direction. It's pretty neat when it was open to do that. Now it's a little harder to do that, but yeah. Anyway, where else do you
Wow.
want to go? So you want to? I imagine you're going to do Taormina one day because you'll be right
Yes.
there, and
Yes.
then you should do Siracusa another day for sure.
Sure. Speaking of the waters too, I took a scuba certification class, and my friend is already an experienced diver. So there's a place called
Mhm.
Dive Sicily right in Giardini Naxos. So if you
Good.
want to go in the Mediterranean, which I hear is very clear water and warm.
Well, you're going to probably do the Ionian Sea because that's the actual sea that's there
Right.
the coast there, Giardini. And yes, in the Bay of Taormina, the waters are beautiful and clear, and they're going to know some really neat places to take you. Hopefully, you'll see some underwater archaeological stuff, like shipwrecks or old amphora that are down in the seafloor. It's one of my dreams to do that.
Hmm.
I don't have scuba certification. I'm not sure I would like to do it, and then I'm kind of a little scared of it. But
Hmm.
I snorkel all the time right here where I live, and I love, 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 love. It's like hiking, but underwater for me, snorkeling. So yeah, you should have a wonderful excursion from Giardini doing some scuba. They're gonna know where to take you for sure.
That's great. That's great.
Mhm.
And I'm still a beginner, so I'm very cautious. I don't want to go too deep. I just want to swim around, look at stuff. I don't want to be adventurous.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to see, and certainly, and recently, where was it that they found off the coast of? It was just like last week. There was an article that they found another
Yeah.
amphora. I think it was Marsala. I think it was off the coast of Marsala. They found another, oh, it was Mazzetta del Vallo, so southwestern Sicily. They found a Roman. They think it's a Roman or Punic era, so it could be Carthaginian Roman ship that they found like 150 amphora on the sea floor, and that was really recent. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about underwater archaeology. It's like one of the coolest things ever. So we'll see
Yeah.
what they find
Right.
with those amphora. So let's see. You're gonna do. So you said you have 5 days. That's it. You only have 5 days here.
5 days. Yes. I wish it could be more, but we have.
Carl, come on. Well, one of the questions I get often is, what's the ideal length of time for an itinerary in Sicily? And I say 10 to 14 days is really the way to go. If you want to see all of the island. If you only have a short amount of time, like 5 to 7 days, I often recommend that you stay on one side of the island, which is what you're doing. And then you can do that jaunt. You're pretty young, so you can handle that long day to do the Agrigento Valley of the Temples visit and Scala dei Turchi, and then come back to Giardini. So you'll be all right.
I think
And
so. And we're
yeah, and
two we're two drivers, to
good.
take turns.
Good, good, good. And what are the things you like to do? Like obviously scuba. You said, are you into history? Ancient history? What's your
Yes. Yes. My friend and I are both into history and art.
okay? So then you absolutely should plan to visit the Museo Orsi, the archaeological museum in Syracuse. I mean I love museums, but I know a lot of people limit their museum visits. And so when I'm counseling people about and designing trips for people in Sicily, um, if I have one museum they go to, it's going to be that one, and that's the Orsi in Syracuse. It is one of the most, uh, I'd say, has well, I've been to a lot of archaeological museums. I'm like, huge into archaeology, and I've been all over Europe and visited museums. And it really now it's not the Louvre, it's not the one in Berlin, and it certainly isn't the Met in New York. But it rivals it rivals those museums and the British Museum, of course. I mean, a lot of the stuff that is from Sicily is in the British Museum or elsewhere. But what is still here or see really is the place to visit, and it's just I whenever I have time I go back and I go to different galleries. It's huge. It's a huge museum actually, full of stuff. So if you are into history and into art, it's a place to visit for sure. You should plan at least 2 hours there, and you'll only see part of it, but you'll get enough to see it well. And if you want some guides, you can tell me, and I'll give you a couple names of people you can see if they're available. End
Oh,
of September, when you're going, is one of the most popular times to travel in Sicily for
really?
English-speaking people. Yeah, people think, oh, it's the shoulder season. October, I'm going to go. It's the shoulder season. Not for Americans. Um, Late September, October, May, beginning of June, and somewhat April, in that order, these are the most popular times of the year for Americans to be traveling. And so it's hard to get guides, it's hard to get drivers, it's hard to get the hotels you want unless you book really far in advance. So one of the things that I tell my prospective clients is contact us at least 6 months in advance of when you want to travel, because it helps us help you. because once we get into, for example, if you're doing an October planning, by May, end of May, I'm having trouble getting hotels that I want.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's Sicily is hot. It's like not temperature wise. It's like popular. White Lotus has created a mystique that wasn't there before, certainly. And then we've had the Lines of Sicily, which is this wonderful show that's based on the book by Stephanie Auchi. That's on, I think, in the States, it's on Hulu. And then we've had also Il Gatto Pardo, The Leopard, which is on Netflix. And that's a remake of the novel, again, The Leopard, by Giuseppe di Lampedusa. And then now we have The Odyssey, also, which was filmed in the Aeolian Islands and also Favignana, on the west coast. It's an island off of the west coast of Sicily, which is where Ithaca was, in the Odyssey films, Christopher Nolan film. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other shows that aren't as well known. But Sicily's been getting a lot of attention in the last 3 years or so. And so the tourism has had a boom. We've just had a boom because of it. Sicily's on the map. And then Dolce & Gabbana was just here doing their big fashion shows in Taormina with Jennifer Lopez. And then Dua Lipa got married here in June. And in fact, I was at one of my favorite places in Trapani province the other day visiting, and my colleague there said, "Oh, thanks to Dua Lipa, we have a bunch of weddings already scheduled for
Wow.
2027, 2028. Requests are coming in." Yeah, so it's hot. And also in Scopello, too, that's another place where, again, the Dua Lipa effect of her getting married here has created this whole, demand for coming to Sicily as well for destination weddings, which was already happening, but now it's like through the roof. So that's exciting.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
yeah. Dua Lipa is a major pop star, so
Yeah.
a lot of people now are looking to get married here because of that. So yeah. So what else can I help you with in terms of your travel? Tell me more.
I have one logistical question because the day we leave on September 20th, my friend's flight is like 10 in the morning, mine is 10 in the evening.
Okay,
So
and from Catania Airport,
right.
imagine,
And so
right?
we return the car to the airport, and then I'm kind of without a car with all my luggage. Is there a place where I could hang out or store my luggage and go journey around during the day?
Yes, I'd have to look online. I do think that Catania Airport has a luggage storage. I know in the center of Catania, certainly there is luggage storage for sure, and you can take a bus from the airport very easily to get into the center of Catania. Um, and I'm people always ask me like, why haven't you programmed Catania during my itinerary? It's the second largest city in Sicily. It's Catania. The center of Catania is beautiful. In fact, I have a photography in Sicily tour that I host at the end of January, and we still for 2027 we have some spots on that. And we actually spend 5 days in Catania because we go there we are based there during the feast of Sant'Agata, which is the third, fourth, and fifth of February, and it's outstanding and remarkable. And for photographers, it's just stupendous between the crowds and the people, and they're all in their Sant'Agata costumes, and then they're carrying the vare and they're carrying the Candelaria, and I mean it's just incredible. And then there's night photography. I mean, it's a real challenge for photographers. From everything from the portraits you can take of people who are willing to stop and have their picture taken to the action. But and also during the winter months, it's a great place to use as a base, Catania, to discover the eastern part of Sicily because a lot of things close down. Basically, between Christmas or after the Epiphany, which is January 6th, through to Easter. So, say January 6th to Easter, whenever Easter is, Taormina is dead. There's nothing going on there. It's like one hotel open. In Giardini Naxos, nothing's going on. Even Siracusa, Ortigia, there's really most things are closed, and there's one or two hotels open. Most restaurants are not open except on the weekends. So I tend to put people in Catania during those early parts of the year. So for you in September, I would say save Catania for when your friend isn't with you and you spend the day in Catania that day, And what would you do in Catania that day? Well, his flight's at 10 in the morning, so I imagine you have to return the car before like 9 o'clock or something. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
And then, you can figure out, I'd say somewhere at Catania Airport, there's probably a luggage storage in the airport. Most train stations and airports have a official luggage storage place. And then, like I said, you can get into the center very easily with a bus. Um, First thing I would do, I don't know what day of the week it is, because that also counts. Let me see, September
The
20th.
20th, it's a Sunday, actually.
Okay. So, I don't remember if the market's open on Sunday mornings. It may be, or at least partially. So I'd say first thing to do is get yourself to the fish market in Catania, because that is a scene for sure.
Mm.
And if you just look up where's the fish market in Catania, you'll find where to find it. It's right in the center. And again, the sooner you get there, the better, because it's going to be probably by 12:30, 1 o'clock, they'll all be done closing up their stalls if they're open. But it's a real scene. The fishermen and the fishmongers, I should say, are real personalities. So it's fun to go see them, calling to try and get your attention, and people shopping for their Sunday lunch things. Also, church will be getting out. So if you can get to the cathedral before during mass, or when mass is getting out, so you can get into the cathedral and see. This is where Sant'Agata, where her bust is held inside the cathedral, and so you want to certainly see that. It's a beautiful Baroque cathedral, and the veneration of Sant'Agata in Catania is feverish. So it's pretty neat to see that. And then there are many different other things along via Etnea there, that you can walk up, where there's of course shopping, and then there's the different other Baroque churches, the Benedictine monastery. There's a few things in Catania right there that you can see, but also just seeing people doing their passeggiata on Sunday, and going into some of the cafes that are right there near the cathedral and Piazza Duomo, and observe people watching. I think is going to be great, because in the center of Catania, yes, there is tourism, but there are also real people, real Catanese doing Catanese things, and I think you'll find that to be entertaining on a Sunday, for sure. And restaurants, there's some excellent restaurants there as
Mm.
well. So that would be probably what I would say, how you can pass some time on that day.
That's great. That's
Yeah, and
great.
and and he doesn't need to go into the center of Catania. He's not going to miss much by not going into the center of Catania when you two are together. I'd
Mhm.
say what you should plan to do on the day you go to Siracusa, for example, um, make sure you get there, or in the morning ish. So say by 10:30, 11, and during a weekday, so that you can see the Antico Mercato, the antique market in Ortigia, alive and doing what it does. And so Monday to Friday, and somewhat on Saturday, it's going to be more active and more real of what it's really like. Um, and then you can walk around Ortigia and then get to the museum at the hot part of the day, let's say. No Mondays that the museum is closed, so plan not to go on a Monday. Also, like do Tuesday or Wednesday, and then you can hit the archaeological park later in the day. Let's say it closes generally around 6 o'clock, so know that. So it's helpful. This is a planning thing, and for people who are watching this who are interested in planning their own trips to Sicily, there's a few things that some tips I'll give. Okay, I hope you're okay with me just rambling, giving you tips. But these are the important things when I'm planning a trip to Sicily to check. Okay, obviously you know what you're interested in. That's easy, but you should always check that the day of the week matters a lot for the openings of museums and markets. And then obviously, when things close, like I said, you want to know the archaeological museum is closed on Monday. The park is open every day and it closes at 6 p.m. So I'd say, if you want to do the Siracusa visit, pick a different day. Don't go on Sunday, don't go on Monday if you can avoid it, because then you get the market in Ortigia. You can do a little bit of Ortigia, and the hot part of the day after lunch, you can get to the archaeological museum. And then in the end of the day, you need an hour and a half to 2 hours to do the archaeological park. And you'll catch a little bit, in September, the sun starts to go down at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Sunsets around 7:30, okay, depending on, the equinox and depending on when they change the clocks back. We change the clocks back here in the fall, I think, earlier than the US does. So that's something also to pay attention to is when the change of the hours are, right? The other thing I always do is plan my day according to when sunset is, right? Because you're on an island and that's pretty cool, okay? So Agrigento, for example, is a great place to plan your sunset, right? So if you guys don't mind driving after dark, you should plan to visit Scala dei Turchi towards the end of the day while this, get the golden hour. Okay. Now it may not be possible because, you're going to end up pushing your day pretty late if you do that. But, look at it. Or it may make sense to go to Scala dei Turchi like at the height of the day, have lunch there, and then do Valley of the Temples in the afternoon when you get that afternoon light, which on the temples is extraordinary, right? So when you're thinking about photos, like again, that waning sun is just beautiful on the temples. And it's also less people at the afternoon. And so there's a lot of things, a lot of tricks that I know because I travel in Sicily 6 months a year myself. Like if you put all the time together that I'm on the road, traveling in Sicily, sleeping in hotels, eating in restaurants with clients, doing things, hiking on my own, whatever. I mean, I live in Sicily now, but that doesn't mean I'm always traveling around the island. I sit at my desk a lot here, but because I host tours, I've hosted already in 2026 5 tours of Sicily.
Wow.
Okay, with clients traveling. I have 3 more to do already. Like September, October, I'm going to be out with 3 different groups in the fall. So my knowledge is extremely deep, and so when you call me to book a tour for you, and we do everything. We have a whole concierge service that we do, where we do everything soup to nuts, as well as the small group tours that I host, which are 12 people and fewer. But I also do these phone consultations, and this is the kind of advice I give during a phone consultation. It's like if you're planning it yourself, but you need some professional advice about how to really make it extraordinary, this is the kind of stuff that I know that I infuse into the conversation. And when I'm telling you about what to do with your trip, I really can give you those nuggets that are super valuable to make it valuable because I'm doing it myself. It's not theoretical.
Right.
Like I say to people, like I have on one of my posts, which is like my pinned post on my Instagram, Experience Sicily, is, I smell the bathroom. I know what the bathroom smells like. AI doesn't know what the bathroom smells like, and neither can any picture on TripAdvisor or Expedia or Google or anything tell you what the bathroom smells like or what the mattress feels like. I mean, this is the reality of what I do and that I know, and how really, I eat the food. I know the service. I know the guide. I know how entertaining the guide is. So I know the best rest stops along the way. I know if they clean the bathroom well, and if it's a little moldy. I mean, this is not fun stuff to talk about, but this is the reality of when you lead groups and I'm with clients, I hear what things are like, and if I don't experience it in my room, for example. So there you go. Just some tips. And another tip that, I was just talking to my team. I just had my team meeting, and we were talking, my colleague said, did you see that itinerary those clients sent you? They sent me this itinerary. They're like, this is what we want to do in Sicily in May 2027. I looked at this and I was like, this was done by a computer. I can tell, because this is not a human being could not do this. Like this itinerary, this is silly. So be aware of AI generated itineraries because the computer doesn't smell the bathroom.
Right. Yeah, my friend and I we're both filmmakers.
So, I know. I was on your YouTube channel watching your your trailer for your film.
Oh,
And yeah, I'm like fascinated by your film. I'm sorry I'm
wow.
not going to talk to you about human trafficking, but we can if you want, because certainly that's an issue here in Sicily.
Right.
But anyway, you're saying you're
Well,
a filmmaker.
what that means is one, we'd love photography. So I'm really appreciative that you just mentioned playing your day according to where the sunset is and what
And
time.
the blue hour, and the blue hour, that's a very important thing.
Yeah.
And sunrise too,
Yeah.
because um, when you're on the Ionian Sea, which is Giardini Naxos, the sunrise is really what you should also be like. Plan to take a nap in the middle of the day because you're going to have to be getting up. Well, actually, late September, it's a nice time because the sunrise is going to be like 6 a.m. or so. So it won't
Yeah.
be super early. It won't be crazy early. So you'll be able to see some amazing sunrises from Giardini.
Right.
And speaking of the Odyssey, I'm sorry, you can tell how enthusiastic I'm about what I do. Speaking of the Odyssey, one of the, when you're reading the Odyssey, or I say listen to the Odyssey, and I really recommend listening to Emily Wilson's translation that Claire Danes reads, by the way. And I think maybe while you guys are driving around, if you don't want to talk to each other, you could listen to the Odyssey while you're driving around. But one of the things that Homer says is, the rose-colored fingers of dawn. Like he describes the sunrise a lot, and he describes them by the rose-colored fingers of dawn. And when you're on the Ionian Sea, like you'll be, the sunrise really does look like the rose-colored fingers of dawn. You'll see it. It's really magnificent. So make sure you're up for a couple sunrises too. Get yourself
Yeah. I
up
definitely
now.
want to see that because we're a few minutes walk from the beach. So I'd love to do that. Hang out there, watch the sunrise.
Yep. And then you can go have a cornetto and some espresso or
Yes.
cappuccino. Yep, for sure. Yep.
I the last time I was in Sicily was in 2003 with a tour organized by Arba Sicula.
Yes, Gaetano Cipolla, of course. I
Yeah,
know Gaetano. I'm a member of
right.
Alba Piccola too. Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah,
Mhm.
Sicilian Dawn, that's what that means. And
Yes,
so,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I interviewed him here on the podcast and
I saw that. I
oh,
saw
okay,
that. No,
great.
I'm a big. I really. I pay. I have a huge respect for Professor Chipola, for Gaetano. He's like, call me Gaetano. No, we know each other from New York because I am from New York,
Oh,
so I know him
okay.
somewhat well. Yes, and I have
Yes.
lots of respect for him. So tell me about your tour with him in 2003.
It was wonderful. We went all around Sicily and um he, it was just a great trip. I was there with my parents and my aunt and a bunch of New Yorkers mostly
Uh huh.
of Sicilian descent. So
Yeah.
we even saw, and this was kind of mind blowing. Speaking of Greek literature, we saw a Greek play at the Greek theater in Syracuse.
Yeah.
It's like wow, people were sitting here 3,000 years ago watching plays, just like we are right now.
Yes, yes, and this is something when I plan trips for people in May and June, I always incorporate or inquire, do you want to go to the theater? Because you can have this remarkable experience of seeing an ancient Greek play in an ancient Greek theater where they could have been performed, or in some cases we know they were performed. So yes, that is an extraordinary experience. Do you remember what you saw when you did that?
No. No, that
Well,
was many years ago. I could,
yeah.
I could probably ask
Yeah, you probably
Gaetano.
find out. He probably has the itinerary in one of his old, the newsletter he has. It's probably
Yeah.
written there. Yeah, and they just announced the 2027 schedule. Actually, we're buying the tickets already because that's how crazy I am. We're buying the tickets already for our May 2027 Enchanting Sicily tour that I do because I bring my group all the time in May, and we get some of the best seats in the house because we buy them like right now while they go on sale. So center, like sixth row back kind of thing.
Mm.
I don't know exactly what play we're going to see because I left it to my colleagues. I said, go buy the tickets right now. Go look at the calendar and see what day we're going. So yeah, it's an extraordinary experience. Even though it's in Italian, right?
Right.
Like I mean, that part just kind of washes over you. And now you have an in-ear translation, which is like it's okay. You can listen to the translation while the action is going on. Also, they have English translations of the more or less of the version of the play that they're doing. So, because usually there's a dramaturg involved and they do edit the play from the ancient Greek into modern Italian, and then over the production, they do end up editing it somewhat to fit it into their like 90-minute or so format that they have, because they do it like without an intermission. But anyway, it's the plays are the productions, I should say, are so incredibly visual and exciting to watch. They're world class. The other thing maybe you remember is that they have really large choruses because it's a conservatory, a drama conservatory. So they have young actors. Uh, if they need older ones, certainly too. But there's usually like 40 or so young actors that are involved in the show, which is something that we don't see in the United States on Broadway, for example. It's super expensive to have that many people in a show like of this level and scale. And so to see all of the young actors participating as the choruses, it's super moving. Super moving. Like this year, what play did I see? Well, there's Ajax last year. I'm like, it's escaping me at the moment what I saw, but it was a war, battle related kind of topic, and it started out with everyone was in military gear, burying the dead, much like looking much like something going on in Ukraine, for example. So it really took me right to that battlefield and that cemetery of burying your fellow soldiers. Um, and the effect of having so many actors on stage doing that was a huge part of the atmosphere of it. So it's a something for sure that you have to see when you come in during that season. That's why I'm Enchanting Sicily. My trip Enchanting Sicily is like such one of my people ask me like, what's your favorite itinerary or what's the best time for me to travel in Sicily? And I say May, end of May, first week in June, because you get to catch the theater in Syracuse, and then what we do on that tour on the other end, on the end of it, is it's the beginning of June. The weather starts getting warm enough, and the sea becomes warm enough to go swimming, and so we have like magnificent boat excursion at the end of the trip. So that's the thing. So what else did you do during that trip that you remember?
We saw a lot of temples. I think we saw every temple on the island,
Mm-hmm.
as I
Right,
recall.
right.
Catania with the famous elephant
Uh huh. In the Piazza
sculpture.
Duomo. Yes. Yep.
The square in Palermo where the Vespers uprising happened.
Uh huh. Wow. Okay. He took you there. Okay.
Yeah, we went on a bus around the island. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for people who don't know, give us a brief description of what the Sicilian Vespers was all about.
Okay. Well, it was a revolution. And essentially, now we're talking 1282. All right. We have to consider what year we're talking about, 1282. And it was actually 20 years that that revolution went on, until 1302 when they signed the treaty in Caltabellotta. So what was it about? Okay. It's very complicated, but we have to know that leading up to 1250, we had the Norman kings. And the Normans, who were Vikings, were extremely forward thinking, very strong with administration, and they incorporated into their courts the Arabs that had been part of the Sicilian population. So we're talking Roger the First, or Count Roger the Second, my favorite king, who is a magnificent Norman king. His son William the First, William the First's son William the Second, who built Monreale Cathedral, and then William the Second's cousin Frederick the Second became king. He's the one that died in 1250. Frederick II, we call him Stupamundi. He was this outstanding leader, but really Roger II was the one who established this kind of concept of a multicultural society, incorporating all the different cultures that existed here, especially centered in Palermo, which was the capital at the time. And the thing about the Norman kings is that they were given the sort of quote divine right by the Vatican. The Vatican employed them more or less, you could say, as mercenaries, more or less, you could say, to get to Christianize Sicily, because before that it was Arab, it was Muslim. And the Vatican up in northern Italy wasn't so keen on those Muslims being in Sicily. Now, what we need to also know is that this is during the quote Arab Golden Age. The Arab Golden Age is leading up to this period, and that is a very awesome time period. So, once you start looking into the history of the Mediterranean, leading up to the 1060 when Roger the First and then the Normans came in, the Arab Golden Age was happening. So they were having advances in mathematics. They had advances in irrigation. They had the Library of Alexandria existed leading up to. I mean, there was so much knowledge. They were the ones that kept all the ancient Greek and Roman texts. They were the ones that translated them into Arab, and then they held them. And also in Constantinople, the Byzantine Roman Empire was still sort of very strong. So there was a thing going on between the Eastern Roman Empire and the Eastern Orthodox Church. It's very important to know. And then the Vatican, was just the Latin Church, had this whole thing going on where they were fighting to try and regenerate the Latin Catholic Church. Okay, so I know I'm getting into a lot of details, but it's very important to understand why the Vespers happened, because the Normans kind of played both sides of the aisle. They understood that the Arabs and the Muslims brought a lot to the table. They also understood that Byzantium and Constantinople was holding a lot of the ancient knowledge from the Greek times and the ancient Roman times. So they didn't want to ignore all that. But the Vatican promised them a lot. And then in the end, the Vatican started having problems with the fact that the Normans had so much power. And especially Frederick II had a ton of power because of his heritage. He came from the Norman kings in Sicily, and then he also his parentage. He had rule of Germany and the northern kingdoms. The Vatican, being in the middle, was squished between what the Normans basically ruled, this quote Holy Roman Empire. Okay, and the Vatican was like, ooh, we gave these guys a little more power than we wanted, right? So when Roger II died in 1250, the Vatican saw it as an opportunity because he really didn't have an heir that was super ready to take over, nor was considered super legitimate. He had a couple sons. One was very young, and one was quote illegitimate because he wasn't married to the mother when the child was born. So the Vatican started to quote shop around to say to a bunch of other royals in Europe, in Northern Europe, Sicily needs a king. Do you want to be king of Sicily? It'll cost you X amount. But you could take the kingship of Italy, and I think you might want it. And a lot of people, Spanish were like, a couple Spanish people were like, nah, it's a little too much. French were like, yeah, that's kind of interesting, maybe. And in fact, one of the French counts decided, I think he was a count or a prince, he was like, yeah, I want it. And so over a bunch of things happened, and that French guy, Charles, I want to say, I can't remember. I'm like not remembering exactly who it was, but he was basically installed as the king in Sicily, or to rule Sicily. And so we had a French Angevin rule going on here, and Sicilians didn't like it. We didn't like it at all because again, they didn't really, it was more about like, oh, I'm the king of Sicily, but did he really take care of Sicily and Sicilians? No. All right, so long story to be short now, sorry. What happens is in 1282, now we want to say that it happened the day after Easter, which is the Vesper, the day of the Vespers. But really, these things don't happen overnight. This was not something that just happened. This was already something that was building. And the day after Easter in 1282, some soldiers were flirting with a woman, and the husband didn't like it, and he attacked one of the soldiers, and then a whole thing broke out that these were French soldiers that were under that king. And it became an excuse to then start running around killing French people, French soldiers, anyone who spoke French. And how did they know they were French? They would hold out chechi beans in their hand, and they'd say, "What is this? Tell me what this is." And the French couldn't say chechi without some kind of crazy accent, because it's hard for their mouth to form that word. And if they couldn't say sheshi without chechi, something like that, they would kill them. And this spread across the island, and then this revolution started. And the whole idea was, we want out with the French, down with the French, kill the French. And then what grew out of it, of 20 years of strife, etc., in 1302, they signed a treaty to make the Spanish kingdom, the I can't believe I'm not remembering, but essentially the Spanish were asked to become the kings here, and there was a line through the Frederick II line. There was a relation in order to get the Spanish in here, and we then took on the Spanish monarchy. At the time, that Spanish kingdom did not have a whole lot of money, but that Spanish kingdom eventually did have a lot of money, because they were related to Ferdinand and Isabella, and those who sent Columbus to the United States or to America, and gold came into their wealth, and they became one of the most wealthy kingdoms after all, years down the line. But when they first started to becoming the rulers of Sicily, they didn't have a whole lot of money at the time. And then we ended up having 400 years of Spanish rule here. So, so I'm not a historian, but I love history, and I love these stories. And so when you come on tour with me, I tell a lot of stories, and I try and really bring it down to earth, the history, because it's a lot. It's it's a lot of detail.
Yeah, I love
I try
it.
to make it fun. I try and bring out the personality of it all.
Yeah, I appreciate your recounting that. It's an amazing history, and because I love studying the American Revolution, where we are, obviously, and
Yeah.
I see some kind of connection there, some kind of uh, similarity between people who didn't want this foreign power, this foreign empirical power in their home anymore. And just and again, it wasn't one day, it was something building up over time. And so Sicily definitely had that revolution at that time, but there always seems to be maybe an identity crisis with Sicilians, because you had people who were from there whose families were there forever, but you also had foreign powers coming in and controlling them.
Yes, yes, and foreign powers, because of the location where it is. Because if you want to control trade routes in the Mediterranean, you have to control Sicily and the waters around Sicily. It's essential. So any economic power wants to be able to pass through to pass through Sicily, whether that's the Strait of Messina or around the Marsala side of things, the Trapani side of things. You want to be able to pass through without problems, without having pirates take over your ship and take your goods. And so to control Sicily means you can control trade routes and safety of your activities, your capitalist activities, essentially. I mean, listen, I study history like all the time. I'm just a sponge for it, and it's we know even today we're talking about tariffs. We're a trade war in the United States right now. What is it? It all comes back to trade. Everything comes back to, can I do business without having problems? And that's what the Roman Empire was founded so that they could do business without having problems. The Persian Empire was founded so they could have the steppe. This is the Silk Road, essentially. You could pass through that without problems, because they wanted to just make money and trade goods and get the goods that they couldn't get where you were, the resources you couldn't get. So yes, controlling Sicily was essential. And like you're saying, yes, one of the things I love during my tours, what I do, is showing how the history of Sicily can teach us so much about humanity and today, what's going on today in our world, especially the economics of things. And one of the points that I like to use is the 1693 earthquake. And so when you're in the South, especially in a place like Lentini or Karl Lentini, which is essentially they're next door to each other, but going to Syracuse or going to Ragusa and Modica Scicli, and Catania, of course, you'll hear about the 1693 earthquake all the time. And I really like to use that earthquake as a point of showing people, what happens when you destabilize an economy, like was destabilized during that earthquake. No one had anything after that earthquake. It wasn't just one earthquake, it was a series of massive earthquakes through 1693, and then even aftershocks going into 6 months beyond 1693. They had to rebuild. How do you rebuild? Well, barons and nobility had property, they had land, but they didn't have their home. They had no pot to piss in. So how do you get your house built? You have to ask the workers and the people who have the skills to build your toilet for you. And so I can build your toilet for you, but what are you going to give me for building your toilet? And all those people, all the nobility had was land. And once you have land and you own property, and this is like the American dream, like I'm going to own my own house, I'm going to have my acre of land, right? You have ownership of something. You have pride in your home. This is why we have the beautiful lawns and the white picket fence we have in the United States, right? So people in southeastern Sicily that were affected by the earthquake grew a middle class. Because you had middle and a professional class could grow out of that economic destabilization. And you will see when you're traveling, I want you to pay attention to this, Carl, when you're traveling, and I'd love to talk to you after your trip to Sicily too. So you'll see that, and unfortunately, you don't have time to come to the west side, but you're going to go to Agrigento. Agrigento didn't have that earthquake. So nothing changed in Agrigento post 1693. They continued to have the feudal system. They continued to have a very small noble class and 99% of everybody else, i.e. contadini, i.e. peasants. And in the places where the feudal system continued on until the 1860s, which is the Risorgimento, okay, those places, Agrigento, Trapani, Palermo, and the province, what happened there? Mafia. What is mafia? Corruption. What is corruption? It creates backwards, frozen in time, suffocates economics. Nothing can happen, nothing can grow. Okay? Go back to southeastern Sicily. When you're in Modica, in Ragusa, you're traveling around Syracuse province, you will see the wealth, the cleanliness, the pride that people have, because since the 1700s, there has been a middle and professional class, and those people were empowered with owning property, having their own little farm. The work they put into it, they could earn from it. They could save, they could protect their families, they could grow crops, they could sell them, they could trade, they could create professions. And so the destabilization that happened from the earthquake created this incredible economic boom for that population. Whereas in the western part of Sicily, that did not happen, and we have deep corruption that lasted and still exists. And as a result, the mentality of the people on the west side, including Agrigento, is very different. The self-esteem, their respect for their property. They throw garbage places. That's one of the things you're going to be shocked by. Why is there garbage everywhere? Because they don't have pride, because it's like, well, it's not mine. It's the baron's property. And he has to take care of it. It's his problem. He didn't take care of me, so I'm just going to throw my garbage wherever. And they still have that attitude, even if it is the commune, the commune, the government is, you are the government. That's the thing. It's like Sicilians, I tell them, you are the government. This is yours, that you're throwing this garbage into the street that is yours. But because for hundreds of years it wasn't theirs, it was the barons, they don't have that sense of ownership of it. Whereas when you go to southeastern Sicily, it's a completely different attitude. So pay attention to that. That's why I really love to show that story, because it really can teach us a lot about economics today and what's happening in the United States today with economics based on this history.
Wow, that is fascinating. I didn't know that.
Most
That,
people don't.
that
Most
when
people
you have
don't.
private property, you're very keen on taking care of it. You're not going to
Yes.
throw garbage on your own property.
No, no,
Yeah,
and in your own neighborhood, you're not going to do that because you
yeah,
want your neighborhood to be beautiful. You want your property value to be good. You want people to come to your business and give you business
right.
and feel safe, and you want your family to feel safe. So it's really fascinating on the
Yeah.
same little island, the size of Massachusetts, how that economic situation can be seen. You cross into, I'm telling you, cross into Agrigento or Caltanissetta province, and you see the difference almost immediately. You see it also really immediately because and I want you to pay attention to this because you'll be probably in southeastern Sicily one day and you'll see all of the stone walls. They have the dry stone walls that are with the limestone. And Etna also has a similar situation because Etna is its own island within the island. But again, they have property ownership um, and you'll see the division of property so that the livestock would stay within those walls, right? And my farm is here and your farm starts there, and it's very clear, and they're small plots of land. As soon as you cross into Enna, Caltanissetta province, Agrigento province, then you'll see plantations. And I use that word because we Americans really can understand what that means when I say a plantation. It's a massive farm. It's an industrial farm in the sense of that you need a lot of people working that land in the past before mechanization. And you'll see wheat fields and wheat fields and wheat fields, and you could compare it to the American South. And so when 1860 happened here, that's in the same era as 1860 to 1865 in the US when we had the Civil War and we freed the slaves in the south of the US. The same thing happened here. We freed the serfs, which were essentially slaves. They were tied to the lands of the feudal system here in Sicily. And then you had that post time, those 1870s, 1880s. What happened? The mafia. That's when the mafia starts, is in the 1870s, 1880s here. And that's also when the mass immigration happens to the US and to other places around the world because they were like, I'm out of here because this is insane. And it's similar to, again, the South when you had a lot of blacks moving to the North because they could find work, they were treated better, etc. Sicily's history and the US's history are really interestingly aligned in many ways. And that's I love to use Sicily as a vehicle to show Americans, and especially I had a high school group with me this past March, and the reason I took on the group was because I wanted to show them how you could see it really obviously here in this little place, our own history as
Mhm.
Americans. Because like you, I'm really into American history also. So
Yeah,
now
it's
now I'm super
fascinating.
into Mediterranean history, but
Sure.
certainly, yeah. So
Wow, I could talk to you for a couple more hours. I'll just mention one more thing before we wrap. Within my family, it was the Lentini brothers. A bunch of them came from Sicily and came over to New York.
uh huh,
And there was always kind of this story or rumor that the Lentini family owned an olive grove in Castelvetrano. And my
sure.
father never mentioned it. He probably didn't take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But I asked around, and one of the brothers who came from Sicily had said, yes, we did at one time own an olive grove there. And I'm wondering, because I know once World War II happened, ownership, titles, all those things, everything kind of changed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So these days, I don't think there's any. It just remains a legend. I don't think there's
Right.
any
You're curious to
paperwork.
know
Or,
if your family still has some olive grove somewhere that's abandoned and no one's tending to it. Is that what you're
well,
curious?
I'm sure someone is. I'm sure someone owns it. It's just
Yeah,
it'd be
I
a
would say
fun
yes.
project, someday.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. Another thing about Castelvolturno and everywhere down in that area, which is the Belice River Valley, but also there was another earthquake. Earthquakes are very important in 1968, and a lot of the records in that whole area were destroyed. So I often will have clients come and they say, "Oh, I have heritage. My heritage is Poggioreale or Salta Peruta," and I'm like, "There's nothing we can do. because all the records were destroyed by what happened in the earthquake, whether it was fire, or water damage, or I mean, I was just in Poggioreale Antica um, 2 weeks ago or so, and I was kind of shocked about what it looks like. I had not been there. I'd been to Sala Peruta Vecchia, um, and I've been Salemi. I've seen a lot of the earthquake stuff from 1968, but I had not been to Poggioreale, and wow, it's incredible to see. And I understood at that point like why the records don't exist. So my guess is, and Castelvolturno also was affected by that. Not as much as some other places, let's say, but it's hard to find records from before 1968, essentially, because of the earthquake that happened then
Wow. Goodness.
in
I
that
didn't know
region.
that.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, I encourage people to try. We have local insiders. My colleagues, I have people around the island that we get. Whatever documents you have, family history stuff you have, we always work hard to figure out what we can find out. And if we can find things, we connect you with someone in the town, and they'll go to the Office of Vital Records with you. We'll look up the addresses of your relatives' homes, where people were born, and also try and give you what we call as a heritage day. So you don't just go visit the office, but we try and do some kind of activity in the town to show you what life was like, or what life is like now in the town, so you have a deeper connection to your ancestors.
Hmm.
I live now in the town where my grandfather was born. I live in Santa Flavia, which is where Porticello is. My grandfather was born 2 minutes away from where I live. I, see his ancestral home all the time. My grandmother was born in Bagheria. I was just at lunch with all my relatives in Bagheria today. So I'm very connected to my heritage, and the reason I'm here essentially is because I'm connected so much to my heritage here, and I feel very, very strongly about that. So I really, it changed my life when I came to Sicily. It really grounded me. It gave me a sense of understanding where I came from, and that's only my paternal side. My maternal side is Canadian, French Canadian, and German, but I'm very connected to my Sicilian heritage for sure. And as you feel, I can see you feel really connected to it as well.
Yeah, there's a definite lure. It's from the heart, you know. It's just something you have to explore.
Yes, and when you start getting into or getting past, let's say, the quote propaganda of what Sicily is, okay, meaning that, oh, it's all mafia, it's backwards, it's old, there's nothing going on there, blah, 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 right? This is the story that a lot of us were told. Once you get beyond that and you start knowing things about the Arab Norman era, and you come and you see the UNESCO sites, and you come and see what's here, you start to understand that our relatives didn't necessarily know this history. The modern Italian government didn't want you to know what was going on here, which was incredible stuff. We had paper here. We had a constitution here before all of the places in Northern Europe, because again we had that influence from that Arab Golden Age. There was a lot. The Normans and the Arabs were very forward thinking people. There was a lot going on here, and when you start to understand all that, you start to have a pride in your heritage that you probably didn't know you should have had, let's say.
Hmm. Sure.
So yeah, so it's pretty, and now we have the European Union, and that has changed everything for Sicily. I mean, I have watched Sicily since 1996 was the first time I came here, and over the past 30 years, I've watched it change so much. And a lot of that has to do with European Union money coming in, and also policing that has happened, and it's really changed the whole face of things. Young people stay here now. Young people start businesses. They're able to do that. And tourism is booming. People are coming to visit. It's just the growth, the economic growth, the opportunities is really remarkable to see, and it is a story that needs to be told.
Yeah, there's so it's such a gem, such a jewel of the Mediterranean. really is.
for sure.
And
And these are all the things I love to talk about with my clients when they come on my trips with me.
great. Well, I may be joining you at some point, I hope,
Yeah.
down the road.
So tell me your dates again. You're going to be here. Let me see if I can. If we're going to cross paths at all. You said September.
Arriving September 15th,
Mm-hmm.
and then departing September 20th.
Okay. Okay. I may be over there on that side. I have a tour that ends on the 18th, I want to say. And I have to head back to the east side to get my car, maybe. So maybe we'll hook up. I'll get
Yeah,
your number.
sure. We'll stay in touch, let you know of my
Yeah,
whereabouts.
yeah, even for a coffee. We'll see what's
Yeah.
possible.
Well, thank you, Allison. Stay on here for a moment. And thanks for being here. We'll talk again.
Thanks for
And
having me.
thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you learned something about Sicily.